Tighten your lines as we get ready to sail the seven seas on the Political Pirate Podcast. Join Captain Ted Yoho and the salty dog John Martin as they search far and wide for the greatest treasure of all, the truth. From local Florida news to nationwide stories and the globe beyond, we've got it all mapped out. Now here's your hosts, the salty dog John Martin and Captain Ted Yoho.
Well, good Friday morning to everybody. We appreciate you starting your weekend with us here at the 3Ps, the Political Pirate Podcast, featuring the old salty dog as your host, John Martin, and the captain of our pirate ship, none other than Ted Yoho. Good morning, Ted.
Morning, John. It's great to be back. I was up in D.C. and back in God's country right now.
I hear you, man. I hear you. Well, before we get into the meat and potatoes of the show, I want to give a shout out. We have a new supporter of our show. The local Alachua County Republican Party is a supporter of our show, and I want to give them a quick shout out there. All the people, including the local chairman, Tim Martin, who also happens to be the mayor of Newberry, Florida. They do great work under some pretty trying circumstances because not all of Alachua County, but the county seat, Gainesville, I describe it to people as the San Francisco of the South. And I think that's pretty accurate, don't you, Ted?
It's not far from that. And I give a shout out to Tim, too. I've worked with Tim over the years, and he does a great job. I've co-hosted the old Ward Scott with him. And Tim has done a good job with the REC, the Republican Executive Committee, which incidentally, when I first ran, I had somebody said you should go to the REC, and I'm like, I didn't even know what the REC was, so I went to that, and it wasn't real warm and fuzzy when I went in there the first few times because I was the outsider, but we had tremendous support with them, so we appreciate them being on board, and they're the ones that put on the black tie and blue jeans. They put on black tie and blue jeans event, the Ronald Reagan one, and that's where you get to see your next governors or next congressmen and talk to people about politics at a very granular level. So thanks for being on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, ladies and gentlemen, on our show on Monday, we talked a lot about the Epstein files because it was coming up for a vote and all of that. And since then, it has been what I'd labeled the Epstein Mania. So you may be tired of hearing about it. To a certain extent, I'm tired of talking about it, but we can't really help but talk a little bit about it because it's on every news network 24/7 right now, it seems like, with difference of opinions and all. But the Epstein files are going to be released. They passed the House almost unanimously. They passed the Senate pretty much the same way, and President Trump signed it. The legislation pretty much as soon as the Senate got to him, and they roughly have 30 days to release the files according to the bill that passed. So what are your thoughts in general, Ted, about the Epstein files, what has transpired? And then we're going to get into some of the mania, but just give me your general thoughts about what happened this week and the aftermath of it.
Well, I'm one that doesn't like to talk about that stuff because there's so many other problems, but it does warrant to be talked about because there is so much mania about it. And I think certainly what you're going to see you're going to see some very powerful people exposed, and it's going to change their life forever. And I'll give you a perfect example of that is Prince Albert from England. He has been stripped of, Prince Andrew, he's been stripped of everything, every title. He's just been an outcast. And that was because of the Epstein files. And I think you're going to see more. And I think there's going to be Republicans in there, and then there's going to be Democrats in that. And I think once we get beyond this, let's focus on the things that are really important for the country, for the future of the country.
Well, on the note you just struck there, we just saw Larry Summers, I believe is his name, who was in the, I guess he was in the Obama administration, and he was the president of Harvard and a teacher there. He was on the board of directors of one of the AI companies and everything. He just resigned from all of that because not only, this just shows you how stupid some of these geniuses are, and the guy really is a genius at certain levels. but he wasn't so much for what he did back during the heyday of the island. I don't know whether that, but he had a lot of back and forth with Jeffrey Epstein since all of this broke
He
before
sure
his
did.
death and everything. He was asking him literally advice on women through email. I mean, how bright can these people really be? And he's the president of Harvard. So he's one of those, what I call educated idiots. I mean, I can't even imagine being that stupid considering what was happening. So what he resigned from was after all of the Epstein mania happened and all the transgressions, after he was already convicted. He was still in touch with this guy. That's just insane to
Well,
me.
it really is, John, when you think about it. And I mean, that was the same thing with Prince Andrew. Stuff came out a little bit about Andrew, and so they kind of slapped him on the wrist. But then it came out, and here, Larry Summers, I mean, he was the Secretary of Treasury under Obama and the president of Harvard, MIT graduate, and asking Jeffrey Epstein for advice on women. That's like, give me a break. It's
I
like,
guess Epstein's advice might be hire the right ones. I don't know. He truly had a binder of women.
I tell you what, when you're going to see it, and not, if Trump's implicated in there, or if there's stuff that he did, he needs to be held accountable. And I think the one I would worry most would be Bill Clinton. Because there's that famous picture of him in a blue dress, and he's posing, laying across the chair. Um, yeah, I think there's going to be some some heads rolling on this one.
It could be. Well, we're going to play a series of videos that are just, to me, just off the chart here. And the
They
first
really
one is
are, aren't they?
old Chucky Schumer. And I'm going to set this up because he was being interviewed right before the Senate. The House had already passed the release files, and the Senate was about to take it up. And he was being asked about the Biden presidency, but he responded, I think, like they were talking about the Trump presidency. You can't make
Yeah.
this up. Listen to this, Ted, and we'll come back and talk about it.
Out there, why wouldn't they have been released the last 4 years when President Biden was in office?
Well, that's the question every American is asking. Or not every American, but so many Americans are asking. What the hell is he hiding? Why doesn't he want them released?
You know what, I agree with Chuck Schumer there. That is the question that plenty of Americans are asking. But Hillary, I want to get your thoughts on the.
But there you have it. He's sitting there. I think he's got this canned answer ready to be asked about Trump. But they asked him about Biden. Why didn't Biden release the files when the Democrats had all the control? And he said, that's exactly what I'm talking about. What are they hiding? I mean, wow. Go ahead, Ted.
Yeah, no, I thought that very same thing when they asked him that. He was thinking Trump, 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 and it really was about Biden. Again, these people that have so much vitriol for the president, and we're going to see that in some of these other clips, that it's all about the president. And here it was talking about Joe Biden, and he had 4 years to release that. I can't help but think when I look at Schumer, I'm thinking he reminds me of somebody, and it was a cartoon character, and I think it's in that series called the Despicables. That guy with the pointed nose, and he's just the bad guy. So
Yeah.
keep going, Chucky. This be your last Senate.
I mean, Chucky's got some issues, I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
But it gets even crazier, Ted, because this next video I'm going to play you, it happened in, I believe, in 2018. Now, let me set this up for you.
All right.
This lady's name is Stacy Plaskin.
I know her well.
She is currently, because you would have served with her back then, I guess.
I sure did.
She is currently the representative of the Virgin Islands, which is a non-voting member, similar to like the D.C. representative and stuff like that. But she was on this oversight committee, that was questioning Michael Cohen, I think is his name, the former attorney of President Trump. And while she's literally doing it, she's getting texted from Jeffrey Epstein, who was still alive at the time, about what to ask questions. Let's check this out, and we'll come back and talk about it.
That Jeffrey Epstein influenced the lawmakers' questions during a 2019 hearing with Michael Cohen. who was testifying against his former boss, Donald Trump. The text between Epstein and Democratic delegate Stacey Plaskett, who represents the U.S. Virgin Islands, were sent in Pacific time. At 7:41 that morning, Epstein texted Plaskett, "Are you chewing?" 1 minute later, she responded, "Not anymore." Minutes before Plaskett was set to question Cohen, Epstein texted. Cohen brought up Rona, keeper of the secrets, misspelling her first name. Plaskett responded, "Rona?" and then asked, "Quick, I'm up next. Is that an acronym?" Epstein replied, "That's his assistant." Minutes later, Plaskett asked Cohen about Trump's assistant.
Is Miss Rona, what is Miss Rona's position?
Rona Graff is Mr. Trump's executive assistant.
And would she be able to corroborate many of the statements that you've made here?
Yes, her office is directly next to his, and she's involved in a lot that went on.
Epstein texted again after Plaskett finished her questions. Good work. After the Post published this report, Plaskett's office issued a statement that read in part, "During the hearing, Congresswoman Plaskett received texts from staff, constituents, and the public at large, offering advice, support, and in some cases, partisan vitriol, including..."
And there you have it. She's literally, Ted, being coached live by Jeffrey Epstein. And I want to make one more point, and I'll turn it over to you. At the time that she's doing this, Jeffrey Epstein had already been convicted of multiple felonies, pedophilia, prostitution of minors, and all of that stuff. Had already been convicted of that. He just hadn't been killed by probably Hillary Clinton, who said he was well hung, by the way. But anyway, and this is a Washington Post report. This is not the most liberal rag. I mean, right. Conservative rag, if you want to call it that. It's the Washington Post that broke this story. What are your thoughts on that, especially having served with her and knowing her personally, Ted?
I think it's an illustration of the swamp. Everybody is so, we want to do what's right. We're going to stand for justice. We're going to do this. But in the meantime, they have their hand out behind them, taking checks from all kinds of individuals. And they play the game of hypocrisy without really playing their hand. But they're so hypocritical up there, saying how bad these people are, but at the same time taking advice from them, taking money from them until they get exposed, and then they come to Jesus, as we're going to see that here on one of the other videos. But I think that illustrates really, John, the culture in Washington, D.C. We got stuff sent to us by people that I just didn't believe in their beliefs, whether it was some of the unions or some of the other things, and we sent their checks back. Just said, really appreciate your thoughts and your support, but we're not going to keep your check. You got to have standards, and there are a few people up there like that. Anyways, she may be one of the members that there'll be an open seat for a non-voting member, but they get all the other perks of Congress.
Well, the thing that really gets me, Ted, because people make mistakes. I'm not classifying that as one. I think that was intentional. But her explanation of why she did it just digs the hole even deeper. And we're seeing that a lot with the Democrats. A lot of times the politicians just can't look in there and say, I was wrong. They're like the Fonz. I was right. But her explanation, which just came out on CNN this past week, explaining why she did what she did, I think makes it even worse. But let's check it out and we'll come back.
Well, and she made a whole different persona. She's changed her look. Just like, I want to escape from what I used to be, and now look at me.
Yeah, that wasn't me. I don't know him. I don't know myself. But let's play this. And like I say, the explanation is even worse. Check it out.
Sure.
So Jeffrey Epstein was a constituent. He was a resident of the Virgin Islands, lived there, I guess, more than half of the year because he was registered there. I had received donations from him after the last investigation came out, which was after this texting. I gave any donations that I had previously received from him to women's organizations and did not have any contact with him.
She's literally saying, Ted, that, I just was talking to a constituent of mine, talking about Jeffrey Epstein, and I didn't know anything about all of this stuff. As I say, the man had been convicted like a decade earlier and was in the news all the time. and was a convicted pedophile. She says she didn't know it, and I mean, it's just unbelievable that she would fall back on that. And even beyond that, Ted, and we're not going to play it, but I could play you a dozen videos of current members of Congress defending her actions there, which to me are just inexcusable. And the CNN interview, if you play the long form, at least the CNN interviewer did ask her, do you not think this was potentially wrong and could be read this way and all that? I mean, my God, I'll turn it back to you, Ted, but it's just, you can't make this stuff up.
No, you can't. And I think, again, it just illustrates how slimy that is up there, because she took the money, didn't return it until she knew it was getting exposed. And then what does she say? Well, I took the money and donated it to a children's society or a children's home. It's like, okay, yeah, that's absolution right there, right? So everything's fine because she did that. No, again, I think it just shows you the type of people that are serving up there, and that's the swamp. And you wonder why Trump can't get more done. There's people like that, and for the Democrats that vote, or the Republicans that voted against her on that, I don't understand that. They should not have done that. I think they should have gone ahead and removed her.
She should have been at the very least censored. No question about that.
Right.
But Ted, she says, oh, he's just a constituent, right? I mean,
Yeah.
the guy owns 2 islands in the Virgin Islands, not just one. He had one that had the mansion, but he owned a second island as well. And listen to this, Ted. And you may already know this, but I don't think our audience does. I was a bit surprised by it. Miss Plaskett was the legal counsel. So she's a legal profession, should know, the legal counsel for the economic development wing of the governor's office, which Epstein during his heyday got $300 million in tax credits from, but yet he's just a constituent we don't know anything about. It's just unbelievable. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, again, it's okay. You can give me the money until you get caught, and then, oh man, I didn't know that, or I gave the money back. Flush them out. They need a good dose of Drano, is what they need.
Yeah, good flushing, man. But the Virgin Islands, Ted, has been controlled by the Democrats. When I say that, their representative in Congress, their governor has been a Democrat for almost 50 years, over 40 years. They've been controlled by that. And as I say, Epstein owned 2 islands there from 1998 until his death in 2019. So the thing is, how could these people be in charge and not know what was happening on that island? And to act like it's just, I didn't know, he's just your average constituent and all that. And they really expect us, to believe this. It's kind of like that saying, what's for supper? Dog crap. That the good news is we got plenty of it, because they expect us to just eat this stuff up, Ted. It's amazing.
They really do. And again, I hope Congress, for the sake of the nation, gets beyond the Epstein files. It's like when I was up there, every office I went in there, it was the stuff that you've seen, these things on the House floor where people tell, each side saying how bad the other side is. And it was all about Epstein. And we're $38 trillion in debt, is what I told the offices. I says, does anybody feel like they should go down there and say, hey, listen, we're $38 trillion in debt. We're paying $3 billion a day in interest. Do we really give a darn about Jeffrey? He's gone. And I know there needs to be justice for the people that were the victims, and that should come out, and hopefully they'll do that. And I think there's going to be more Prince Andrews that get dethroned, which is good. Yeah. I think they should.
Well, I want to play another couple of videos here from Miss Jasmine Crockett. She is something else, man. But this video, she did it this week on the House floor, talking about Jeffrey Epstein, and we'll make sense of this in just a moment, and who all he donated to on the Republican side. Check this out.
Also took money from somebody named Jeffrey Epstein, as I had my team dig in very quickly. Mitt Romney, the NRCC, Lee Zeldin, George Bush, Win Red, McCain Palin, Rick Lazio. I just want to be clear. If this is the standard that we're going to make, just know we're going to expose it all. And just know that the FEC filings, they are available for everybody to review.
And there you have Miss Jasmine Crockett. She sits there or stands there and is listing off all of these people that took donations from Jeffrey Epstein. Okay. But it turns she accused Lee Zeldin, who is the current cabinet member for the
EPA.
EPA, right? Yeah. And he texted right back that it's a different Jeffrey Epstein. It's a Dr. Jeffrey Epstein, not the other Jeffrey Epstein. And here's the thing, when she's going to give an explanation here in a minute, but a lot of people say, oh, well, she's just dumb and all that. I think she's playing dumb, Ted. We know because we played video of her before where she is just not talking like she's from the hood. She's, very eloquent and all of that. She knows exactly what she's doing. And that's what makes it even worse. She's doing by innuendo, trying to convict somebody, putting these names out there when it was a total different Jeffrey Epstein. I'm not saying that the notorious Jeffrey Epstein didn't donate to some Democrats, but the reality is about 87% of his donations actually went to Democrats. I'm not absolving one or another. I'm just simply stating the facts.
No, I mean, dirty money tends to stick to wherever you throw it. But again, this is a great example of Jasmine Crockett playing the role, the chameleon that she is. When she's talking on the floor with her hair all up in a bun like that, she's talking like she's from the hood. Y'all gonna do this, y'all gonna do that. And then when she turns and it looks like she's in the same outfit when she's on the CNN interview, it's totally different. She is transformed back to her other skin.
Well, it kind of reminds me of like Hillary Clinton when she goes into a black church and goes, I ain't no ways tired. I mean, how condescending. Or
Elizabeth Warren.
Back in change. Yeah, Elizabeth Warren.
Or Elizabeth Warren. I'm gonna go over here and drink this here beer. Sure.
Yeah, I tell you what, man, every time I think of that video, I think about her poor husband, kind of in a way, almost like Kamala Harris with her husband. He's like trying to stay out the camera too. But once again, the explanation for why they did, in this case, Jasmine Crockett, is even worse in my view. Let's check this out, because she was interviewed shortly after she made this speech on the House floor by CNN, trying to explain why she did what she did. Check this out.
You mentioned Lee Zeldin there. He's now a cabinet secretary. He responded and said it was actually Dr. Jeffrey Epstein, who's a doctor, doesn't have any relation to the convicted sex trafficker. Unfortunate for that doctor, but that is who donated to a prior campaign of his. Do you want to correct the record on the people?
I never said that it was that Jeffrey Epstein, just so that people understand when you make a donation, your picture is not there. And because they decided to spring this on us in real time, I wanted the Republicans to think about what could potentially happen, because I knew that they didn't even try to go through the FEC. So my team, what they did is they Googled, and that is specifically why I said a Jeffrey Epstein. Unlike Republicans, I at least don't go out and just tell lies. Because it was not the same one, that's fine. But when Lee Zeldin had something to say, all he had to say was it was a different Jeffrey Epstein. He admitted that he did receive donations from a Jeffrey Epstein, so at least I wasn't trying to mislead people. Now, have I dug in to find out who this doctor is? I have not. So I will trust and take what he says, is that it wasn't that Jeffrey Epstein, but I was not attempting to mislead anybody.
Zach.
When we're back, there you have Jasmine Crockett trying to explain it, Ted. And she literally says, and I give the CNN moderator some credit for trying to push back a little bit on it, but she literally says, well, at least I didn't lie. There was a Jeffrey Epstein, and Zeldin admit he got a donation from a Jeffrey Epstein. It's not the Jeffrey Epstein notorious one. It was a doctor or whatever. But at least I don't do like Republicans, she said, and go out there and lie. Oh my God. I mean, like I say, how much of this do they expect us to shovel in, Ted? It's unbelievable.
Well, again, you don't get the government you want, you get the government you deserve. And the people, whoever voted her in, the AOCs and the Talibs and some of the, you can say this on the Republican side too, you get what you deserve. And so, you know, I just feel sorry for the people that she represents. I guess it just depends on what mood she's in, who she's representing that day.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think ultimately, and I've been saying this all along, I believe this is going to backfire on the Democrats myself at some point, but I guess more will be revealed. We're going to take a quick
Well,
commercial
it
break.
will.
Go ahead, Ted.
Well, it will. It'll backfire for a moment, but then the memory of the American people with today's society, with all the news feeds and the social media, it'll last for a day or two, and then people go right back to where they were.
Yeah, you're probably right. Well, we're going to take a quick commercial break here. If you'd like to be a sponsor of our show, look at the little tagline that says Contact Freddie. Make that call. We certainly need your support. We appreciate our supporters. Like what we're doing, share what we're doing far and wide. Take us to break, Ted.
No, we really appreciate all of our supporters and our listeners. And, our goal is to get the word out there and bring you updates from DC so that you know firsthand what's going on and not watching CNN or Fox News all the time. We can give you what's going on up there. So you all take care, and we'll see you after the break.
Although the owner of Lewis Oil Company maintains she is 29, Lewis Oil turns 60 years old in June. Chevron would like to recognize the North Florida second-generation family-owned business, celebrating its growth and staying power. Lewis Oil Company maintains significant on-hand supplies, strategically located fuel depots, a delivery fleet, on-site service, fuel card locks, and convenience stores. Lewis Oil Company understands its responsibility in the local economy by providing service and delivery on demand and in crisis. As a first responder for 18 Florida counties and the Southeast from Texas to Virginia, we are proud of this rare accomplishment. Lewis Oil delivers.
This is Ward Scott, and I want to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. The Ward Scott Files premium sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care.
Meldon Law, the only official injury partner of the Florida Gators.
The Ward Scott Files Gold sponsors are Lewis Oil Company,
Shoot GTR,
On the Spot Dry Cleaners, R&R Construction, and Style Cuts. If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, you can visit our website, www.wardscottfiles.com, and click on the Advertise Here banner on the right side of the page, or call my friend Freddie at 352-284-3733. Again, thank you to all the great businesses that support the Ward Scott Files. And remember, if you like the show, thank our sponsors and support the businesses that support us.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. May God have mercy on your soul.
Or that very much surprises me that you've never been tased.
You can't handle the truth.
All bees poop.
A warthog. He's going to come up the steps. Here he comes. Oh my goodness, and he's huge. Hello, boy. Wonder if we can pet him. Hi, boy.
Can we touch him? No, don't.
Help me! Help! Help!
And welcome. We're back to the 3 Ps, the Political Pirate Podcast, with your host, John Martin, and the captain of our pirate ship, Ted Yoho. Well, Ted, when we went to break, we were talking about the Epstein files. Now we're going to totally shift gears, because even when you think it can't get any crazier in D.C., it just got a little bit more. I want to play this video, and we'll come back and talk about it. I'm sure you know all of these people, Ted. Some of them you may have served with. But these are the Democrats.
I do.
These people, just so I can lie, these people are all members of Congress now, senators, representatives, Most of them were in the military. All of them were in some type of service, whether it be CIA or whatever. And I want you to hear what they are calling for, and then we'll come back and talk about it. Check this out.
Protect and defend this Constitution.
Right now, the threats to our Constitution aren't just coming from abroad, but from right here at home.
Our laws are clear. You can refuse illegal orders.
You can refuse illegal orders.
You must refuse illegal orders.
No one has to carry out orders that violate the law or our Constitution.
We know this is hard and that it's a difficult time to be a public servant.
But whether you're serving in the CIA,
the Army,
or Navy,
the Air Force,
your vigilance is critical.
And know that we have your back.
Because now, more than ever,
the American people need you. We need you to stand up for our laws,
our Constitution,
and who we are as Americans. Don't give up.
Don't give up.
Don't give up.
Don't give up the ship. I'm Senator Alyssa Slotkin.
Senator Mark Kelly.
Representative Chris DeLuzio.
Congresswoman Maggie Goodlander.
Representative Chrissy Houlihan.
Congressman Jason Crow. I was a captain in the United States Navy.
Former CIA officer.
Former Navy.
Former paratrooper and Army Ranger.
Former intelligence officer.
Former Air Force.
We want to speak directly to members of the military
and the intelligence community.
Ted, I know you served with many of these, if not all of these people on this video, and know some of them fairly well. You mentioned that you had just met with one of them when you were in D.C. This past week.
Christy Houlihan.
Tell us your thoughts on this, because, I mean, it just blows my mind and infuriates me at the same time. But go ahead, Ted.
Well, there ought to be a clause in the Constitution called the elastic clause so they can wrap it around themselves, because they do it anyways. They wrap it around themselves to use the Constitution against what somebody like Trump is doing, or for something like what Obama and Biden were doing. You know, and these people, they took an oath to the Constitution to uphold it. And if they don't like what the president's doing, you can change the president, but you don't do it by, and really this is insurrection, fomenting insurrection. And as you pointed out during the break, or while this was playing, a lot of these people worked with the CIA or some of the other three-letter agencies. And those were the agencies that were actively trying to get Trump not elected, starting in 2014, and through his whole career that he's been in politics, they have been working the deep state behind him. And, you know, again, this is the swamp. It's deep, it's thick, and it's going to take a movement of the American people that believe in this country and the founding principles of this to change that culture in Washington and throw these people out. You know, and it's an ongoing process. You don't win just because you win the election and you get the majority today, because the next election you could be on the opposite side of that, and it'll only get stinkier, the swamp, and more toxic.
Yeah, well, the one lady that was wearing the brown kind of suit there, and I know you know her. She actually
Slotkin, I think.
Yeah, she actually worked right directly under Brennan at the CIA. And
and that just proves my point.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Here they are. They're part of the swamp. Now they're in Congress, and it's, you know, it's self-perpetuating because they want to protect all the dirt that they know. You know, when I was there, we had a bill to stop the indiscriminate use of drones. When Obama was in there, Obama did 26,000 drone strikes. They were just happenstance, and it was all conducted by the CIA. So we had a bill that said, if you're going to use one of our drones, because there's always plausible deniability, they'd blow up a wedding or something in Afghanistan or Iraq, and it created 50 terrorists out of that because of who people were left. And so nobody would ever fess up to it. So our bill said, if you're going to use the drone, you have to be side by side by the military. And yes, we're going to say it was us. You know, we're going to say, yeah, we did drop that drone. We dropped it for this reason, and we're going to continue to do this till you stop doing that. And the CIA spook came up to me on the House floor, two of them, and demanded I pull those bills away. And I said, I'm not doing that. And they said, we can guarantee the one will pass if you'll pull the other one. And I'm like, okay. And that's for another story, but it was pretty spooky. I was afraid to walk home. I thought I'd get shanked or something.
Well, you remember Chuck Schumer actually was talking about this, you know, back when Trump was running the first time. and essentially said, when you mess with this with the intelligence apparatus, I'm putting a little bit of words. I'm saying I think more eloquent than him. They have a way of getting you back. So that was a threat in and of itself. And I'm not saying it's not true, but it certainly was
It
a
really
threat.
is. No, it really is, and that's the culture up there. It really is. I mean, people think that maybe just in the movies, but no, it's right there.
Yeah, and the thing that really troubles me about this, and we'll get into the constitutionality of it in just a moment, but in this current environment, that type of language is just dangerous. Do I really believe it's going to, incite a bunch of military people to not follow orders or to go over to China or whatever? It's possible, but very unlikely. But could there be some nut job in his mama's basement listening to that and feel justified in doing something? Absolutely. And there was a poll recently that came out that said somewhere close to 70-80% of Americans in general thought that there would be a political assassination within the next 5 to 10 years. They thought that, right? And of course, there's quite a few Democrats, a majority polled, that thought that political violence actually was legitimate in some situations. So for them to spew this out there, I think just ferments the idiots and the crazies more and more. That's just what I think.
Yeah, and why wasn't there more of them? I mean, if there's so many people think this is so egregious, I don't agree with the strikes on the drone strikes on the drug cartel boats out in international water. I think there's a better way to do that. But if this is so bad, why didn't they have the whole Democratic Party? Wasn't there some Republicans in that? And I think this is a very dangerous thing, John, because it does foment hate speech and it does foment terrorist or assassination attempts. And all we have to do is look back in American history. James Garfield got killed 3 months into his presidency by a nut job named Charles Guiteau, and he felt compelled because the Republican base back then, he was a Republican, but the Republican machine was all based in New York. And they didn't like Garfield because he was going after the swamp of his time. And this guy, Charles Guiteau, that killed Garfield, was saying, well, he was so well hated on his own party that God told me to do this. And so that rhetoric has consequences, as Obama has said. Words have consequences or have meaning. And so, yeah, you ought to be careful what you say here. And, especially for Mark Kelly to be in there because his wife was shot, Gabby Gifford. She was shot at an event because somebody was inflamed by words, and they thought they were justified in shooting people. And here he is doing that. I think it's shameful that he's doing that. It's despicable, and not very well thought out. I don't think of the consequences that he's going to do, and you're going to have to wear those consequences if somebody is motivated by what they just did.
Yeah, and you mentioned Mr. Kelly, and I agree with you about his wife being assassinated. You'd think he would be really keen to that.
Well, she lived, but she got.
Right,
Yeah.
Gabby Gifford. Yeah, but the thing that really gets me too is here's a guy who was a decorated fighter pilot, got in the astronaut program, which is the most exclusive thing we basically have in our public service. And talking about not following orders. Well, first of all, the military is not a democracy. They are, they have to be chain of command. But can you imagine
at the will of the president?
Ted, as a fighter pilot and an astronaut, if you don't follow specifically what they're telling you, and you can't depend on the guy next to you or the lady next to you or your team or whatever, your life is literally hanging by a thread. And in the case of an astronaut, by a little cable hanging you out while you're spacewalking.
A tether.
He of all people should know that what he is spouting there literally could cost soldiers their lives. I mean, he's no excuse to me.
Well, I'm going to make a prediction. These people are jockeying for their next position, I think, some of them. And I think as the Trump administration goes on another year or two, you're going to see Republicans distance themselves from Trump. And they'll join some kind of coalition like this and denounce him so they can separate themselves. And that is all politics. Because if they felt that way and certainly something that could happen later on, another year or two, where Trump really does alienate people and does something very unconstitutional. But you're going to see these people start migrating away from them, and if they felt that way to make a noise then, they should have done it now, if they feel he's so bad. So anyways, that's politics, and that's what happens. People play politics so they can get so they can get elected next go round.
Yeah, and what really got me, because they've interviewed some of these people since then, we're not going to play it, but the vagueness of their charge. It'd be one thing if they got up there and said, the shooting these narco boats, blasting them out of the water without due process and being sure of what you're doing should be stopped. That'd be one thing, but they're just vague, so you can fill in the blanks. And even their explanation is so vague that one reporter was interviewing one and said, well, we're not getting anywhere here, and dropped it. But I want to read just a little bit of the U.S. Constitution. This is Section 3 of the U.S. Constitution of the 14th Amendment. No person shall be a senator or representative in Congress or elector of president or vice president or hold any office, civil or military, under the United States or any state who, having previously taken an oath as a member of Congress or as an officer of the United States, as a member of any state legislature, keeps on going, that they will not do insurrection, basically. And you could define this, and they would be removed from office and not allowed to come back. Now, this happened after the Civil War because there was still a lot of discord and insurrection, primarily from Democrats in the South. I'm just going to say it, and that's why it was. But first of all, does this apply, do you think, Ted? And if so, what do you think should happen to these people?
No, I don't think this applies to what's going on with the. Yeah, it is. And these people here, I think their voters just need to be made aware of it. And that's what we're doing, making people aware of this. Vote these people out of office because they got an ulterior motive. And as you pointed out earlier, that a lot of these people worked with the deep state, John Brenner, and they were in the CIA, one of the other alphabet 3-letter agencies that really were responsible for so much of what's gone on since the Obama era. You think of James Comey and all these people, or Christopher Wray, how they all worked against the duly elected president and tried to get him out of office, blocked his itinerary and his schedule and his what he was planning to do for this country. Those are the people that need to be thrown out. And you know what? You got to have faith in the system, and I have faith in our country, and I have faith in our people in this country, the patriots that'll stand up and do the right thing. And we're going to go through some tough times, but we'll make it.
Yeah, well, I know that that foreign relations and that type of thing is very important to you, and I know you got very involved in that, probably more than you thought you ever would when you first went to Congress. But can you imagine what the Chinese are saying when they look at this, or the Russians when they look at this video? What do you think the Chinese, they got to be just sitting back, just laughing and going, look at these idiots. But what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that's something that is very real and is happening. It goes back to Nikita Khrushchev. He goes, we'll take over America, but we won't ever fire a shot. They'll destroy themselves from within. And, that's what you're seeing. And you see the vitriol getting worse. Every Congress, it's getting more and more. And as I'm walking through the halls of Congress or across the street, I'll have members I served with that'll come up to me and they'll say, Ted, great to see you. You just won't believe how dysfunctional this is. And they said, these people are crazy. And they go, I wish you were back in Congress. I start laughing. I'm like, I was one of the crazy ones when I came in. They said, yeah, but you were practical. You took strong stances, but you're willing to get things done. These people, it's all about sound bites, and they just want to keep dividing us. And there's going to be a breaking point that can't go on forever. And we talked about our debt, and I said, when are we going to get back to the serious things that are really threatening this country? And I sent a picture into you guys because, again, the headline in the office when I went, the first one I went into yesterday, the headline said China is preparing their people for conflict with the U.S. I mean, what that means is we have an impending civil war, not a civil war, world war, because Xi Jinping and China are preparing for that. The other thing is they're preparing to go on Taiwan, and they've warned Japan, if you intervene at all, we're going to just take you out too. And that brings us into a war if that happens. And so those are all going on. And let's not forget our good friend Vladimir up there with Ukraine. That situation isn't getting any better. And then we had the Saudis over here, and that's another story. We'll talk about that later, I guess.
You know what? It just sparked thought of me, Ted. Can you imagine if thank God we didn't have social media, even though we're taking advantage of it ourselves.
Yeah.
If we had social media during World War II, we may not have won that war, man, because
we might still be in it.
There were a lot of Nazi influencers in the United States of America at that time. Hollywood had a bunch of them, coincidentally.
Boy, they sure did. Well, that's funny because we fought the Korean War to stop the spread of communism. That's what brought Eisenhower in the United States in there. And then we fought all these other wars, like World War II. It was from authoritarianism. And then we teamed up with the communists, the Russians. And we wanted to get rid of the socialist movement that did just all kinds of atrocities. And so we've done all those things, and here we are electing socialists and communists in our country. Joe McCarthy back in the 50s went after the communists, and he got run out of office because he was going after the communists. I don't know. I guess there's an underlying group of communists in the country that really wants that, and enough people support that. Obviously, in New York and in Ithaca, New York, and Washington State, Minneapolis. America is changing, and people need to wake up. You're either going to wake up in a constitutional republic, or you're going to wake up one morning and it's going to be a communist state. Simple choice. We just have to fight back and make sure it doesn't happen.
Hakeem Jeffries may be feeling the heat by this because there's a communist about to run against him out of New York and one of Mandami's supporters. That's going to be really interesting. But talk about
it's funny too because they've asked. They want AOC to endorse him, but she hasn't come out yet. And if she does that, I mean, you're going to see a war within the Democrat Party, kind of like what they were doing the other day with that member from Illinois, Chewy, who was stepping out of his seat for whatever reason, and he's slid his underling in there, and the Democrats are all mad about it. I mean, they were going at, and so they're on the floor tearing each other up on the Democratic Party. And I think that's what you're going to see with Ocasio-Cortez and Hakeem Jeffries.
Well, Ted, this next story we're going to talk about is going to happen sometime today around noonish, I think. But, President Trump has met with some interesting people over the years in his first term and certainly in his second term. I mean, he's met with the guy that was now the president or whatever of Syria, who was on our terrorist watch list at one time. He obviously met with Kim Jong-un or whatever, in North Korea. So he's willing to talk to anybody about anything. He's open to talking to anybody because he wants peace. But this next story kind of reminds me a little bit of the old Laugh-In. You might remember that one guy used to come up. This is very, very interesting because later today, Mandami is meeting with President Trump in the Oval Office. I mean, did you ever think this would happen, especially this early? What are your thoughts on that, Ted?
I'm glad you brought that up because when I saw this and I watched the clip and read about it, you got to give Madani credit. I mean, this guy is smart. He's poised. He knows what he's doing. He's going right into the devil's den or the lion's den. I don't want to say devil. I didn't mean that. Going into the lion's den. And he says, I want to do what's best for New York. And maybe he is the guy that can turn New York around. I don't know, but his socialist policies are not going to be the way they do it. I think you're going to see him moderate more and become more into the center because he's going to realize all these free things he's promised. It's not going to happen. Nobody, you can't afford to do that. And you're going to run out your tax base. And, I think he's going to have a wake up call. And I give him credit for having the moxie to say he called for the meeting and Trump's going to meet with him. So let's see what comes out of this. It can't be any worse than meeting with Kim Jong-un or Vladimir Putin, which you brought up Kim Jong-un, and I thought that was interesting because when Trump went to meet him, I was in office and I had all the press. Oh, what do you think about this president doing it? It's breaking protocol and he should use his diplomatic corps. What are your thoughts about that? I said, well, if you go back over history, over 26 years, we've used the experts in the diplomatic corps to negotiate with Kim Jong-un or his father, and it's led nowhere. You know, they say they're going to do that. We give them concessions, and then they go back to their nuclear program. I said, so I think Trump is the person to do this, you know, because the diplomatic corps, all these experts couldn't get it done. Let Trump try it. So, you know, I just thought that was interesting that you brought that up. And really, if people knew the story behind it, I thought it was the right thing to do because the other ones didn't work.
Yeah, well, Trump is one of those people that he wants to take the measure of the man, so to speak, and people take the measure of him, and I think they take him pretty serious. I want to play a quick video of Mandami telling you why he's going to meet with Donald Trump. I think it's pretty fascinating. Let's check this out.
Of thousands of New Yorkers, this meeting is between two very different candidates who they voted for the same reason. They wanted a leader who would take on the cost of living crisis that makes it impossible for working people to afford living in this city. My team reached out to the White House to set up this meeting because I will work with anyone to make life more affordable for the more than 8.5 million people who call this city home. I have many disagreements with the president, and I believe that we should be relentless and pursue all avenues and all meetings that could make our city affordable for every single New Yorker. I intend to make it clear to President Trump that I will work with him on any agenda that benefits New Yorkers. If an agenda hurts New Yorkers, I will also be the first to say so.
Well, I think what Mandami is realizing is something my old daddy Big Sid used to say. There's a difference between campaigning and governing. You want to be true to your word, but governing is very different than campaigning. You know, so I do give him some credit. My question is, will he wear a suit? That'll be interesting going back to Zelensky. And, you know, they're both kind of and I don't mean this in a negative way, both Donald Trump and Mandami have a little P.T. Barnum in them a little bit, you know, and it'll be interesting to see how that works in there. Any predictions on what you think? Because we'll certainly cover it Monday when we get back. What do you think may happen? Any predictions, Ted?
I don't know. He may have Kristi Noem and Tom Homan in there and deport him. I don't know. Well, everybody get your tickets and let's watch. You and John and I will sell popcorns and peanuts around it. I think Trump will be very serious and he'll play the strong man and give out warnings. But I think he'll also extend a hand and say, you know, I'm willing to work with you. Let's make New York great again. And you know, we'll see. And I think Mandami's smart enough to know if he plays to Trump, oh, you're great and did all this, and let Trump take him around the Oval Office and show him all the gold things he's done. You know, Mandami just oohs and ahs over that. Trump will be one of his allies. You know, and I hate to say that about the president, but he does love flattery. And, you know, we'll see how this works out. You know what? I hope it works well for the people in New York City.
Well, far be it from me to give Mandami a tip, but if it were me, I would make this into some statement. I would say, well, President Trump, what my real goal is to make New York City a place that appeals to you so much that you will come back and be a resident once again. That's what I would say.
He may have a Trump watch on and Trump sneakers. I doubt he'll wear a MAGA hat. I doubt he'll have a MAGA hat.
We only got a couple minutes left, but I want to touch base on something that I found really intriguing. And I'm not going to talk about Dick Cheney one way or another much, but of course his funeral service was yesterday. And it was really interesting to me, Ted, the news coverage of it. Fox News basically played President Bush, former President Bush, talking about Dick Cheney in a eulogy. But the other networks like MSNBC covered it wall to wall. CNN and all that. And the thing is, Dick Cheney, when he was in office as vice president, the mainstream media literally called him Darth Vader, said he did not only a heart attack, but he was had no heart and was soulless. And now, because of their hatred of Donald Trump and what Liz Cheney did, all of a sudden Dick Cheney is a hero of the progressive left. Could you ever have predicted that in your wildest dreams, Ted?
Well, that shows you how phony all this stuff is. And, I used to have a lot of respect for Dick Cheney until I found out more about him. He was one of the main reasons we went into Afghanistan and Iraq, and those are wars we should never have been in. There were other ways that we could have handled that. And, and then I got to serve with Liz Cheney and found out what a snake she was. And she was part of that. The party of big government, and she wanted to be the manipulating, and he was one of those people that controlled it from within to get the results that the party of big government wanted. And I think he's got his mark in history. I'm not going to ooh and ah over him. He did what he did, and now it's time to move on. But you're absolutely right. How the media flipped on the left, and oh, look at this great guy, because they didn't invite Vance and President Trump, so that he's their hero.
Yeah, and Mike Pence was there, which is kind of interesting in and of itself. Well, we hope you've enjoyed the show.
Really. Yeah.
I'm going to give you the last word in just a second, Ted. I hope you've enjoyed the show as much as we've enjoyed bringing it to you. Please like what we're doing, share what we're doing, the Political Pirate Podcast, the 3Ps. Have yourself a blessed and glorious weekend. I'm staying home this weekend, Ted. But
no, are you really?
Yeah, I'm doing something with fish. I'm building an aquarium for my granddaughter. So I don't know if they'll be terrified of me or not. But take us out, Ted.
No, I appreciate everybody watching. Appreciate our new sponsor, and we look forward to seeing everybody on Monday. And we're all going to cheer the Gators one more time. This will be the game of the Gators. Take care, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Peace out.